I'll go ahead and start our meeting, call our meeting to order. And the first item we'll discuss is so I have the audit. Are they coming? Is Lindsay and Associates coming?
Yes, they're coming at the regular session.
Oh, the regular, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And he has to be somewhere else at like 20 after 7, so
Okay, that's fine.
another Zoom. So I told him it shouldn't be a problem.
Did anyone have any questions about our regular meeting or our closed session meeting? Mr. Johnson,
I don't.
Ms. Serrano.
Nope.
Okay, Ms. Tuberville. All right, and so the next item is.
I'm here, Mayor. Sorry.
Hi. I'm going to just skip the discussion about our general orders because I want to do everything else and then come back to that. So the next item after that, our police chief did the position of police sergeant, the job description. Did you want to talk about that, Mr. Beal?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I typed up the job description for the sergeant position just to get it approved. I won't actually look or start to recruit for a sergeant till maybe like the end of January, early February. And that's just to go through the whole background process with them and then probably give them an offer and have them start in March or April of next year. And they'll be responsible mainly supervising patrol. As you know, I'm trying to mingle myself on the office side and patrol side. The lieutenant will assist me with admin stuff and they will patrol 80% of the time. The sergeant is more so like the buffer between the command staff and the patrol guys. They will help out with scheduling. They will help out with whatever task the lieutenant assigned to them. They will also be primarily patrol. So they won't have an office here in the station. They're just mainly to back up the other officer, Smith, who doesn't have a backup officer while she's working. So right now, she works with me and I'm her backup officer. So a lot of times when she works, I'm out on the streets, backing her up on calls for service in town.
So we'll have, our structure is our police chief, a lieutenant, a sergeant, and 3 officers. And then a reserve.
Mm-hmm. 2 reserves, at least 2 reserves. If I get lucky and get 1, I'm cool with that. But many of the reserves are going to balance out the weekends and the late night. Well, not the late night shifts, but they will also be helpful when we have any type of incidents in town where we need more manpower, i.e., like the train derailment.
They'll sort of on call in a way, scheduled, but possibly on call.
They do a minimum of at least 32 hours a month because the reserve program isn't their primary source. They still have a full-time job. And so what it is like the volunteer fire service. You can give what you can. We won't ask too much of you, but at least a minimum of 32 hours. But again, if you can't make it 32 hours and you still, showing up for community events and you're doing, at least 2 or 3 days a month, that's fine with us.
I wanted to know from the council, is there a concern? I don't have, I'm not concerned. I like the structure, but is there a concern? I know before we were a little heavy on the top side when we had a captain. Is there a concern about the structure now? And
I don't have any.
I think Miss Sarah has one. She got her hand up.
Oh, she's at the top now. Okay. Yes, Ms. Tuberville.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Chief. So do you imagine that you would be spending more time in the office as a result of having a sergeant on board, or like how do you think that balance is going to be?
So it'll still be balanced. I'll still be out patrolling as well. It's not saying that I'm gonna stay in the office 100% of the time because I know you guys like working, Chief, and I don't mind being out there working and getting to know the community and responding to calls inside the community because I believe that I can't run a department and I won't know what's going on in my community by just sitting behind a desk. So it gives me a chance to actually go and get to know residents' issues that's going on within the neighborhood, in the household, within the family, so that way I can better have officers dispatched to that location. The sergeant position is mainly just to oversee patrol, because sometimes I might be out at the office or at meetings and stuff, and it kind of hinders me sometimes where I have to respond back from, I mean, it's not an issue, but a lot of times I'm not able to respond back to the town to assist. So the sergeant is mainly like a patrol supervisor, like you see in Prince George's County and other small agencies. You got to have some type of buffer to, you have somebody be able to supervise the patrol, write them up if they need be, and then also once the sergeant issues, let's say a sergeant say, officer such and such is coming to work constantly late, I want to, see what's going on. They'll open up internal numbers, submit it to the lieutenant. The lieutenant will come up with a recommendation for disciplinary action, and then I will be the one to give the final discipline. In certain instances, I can't be the one to open up a investigation, do the investigation, and also close it out. So a lot of times, if it's something serious or I need a concrete investigation, then I will have to source out.
Okay. That's all helpful. And then my last question is just about the budget and if this is something that was foreseen in our new budget. I don't have that in front of me, admittedly, so.
So the way the structure was, it was always a captain, lieutenant, and sergeant, and then patrol. It actually benefited the budget because we're not paying the high salary that we did with the captain. We actually lowered the salary for the lieutenant position and lowered the salary for the sergeant position.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
Good questions. Good questions. Thank you, Chief. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, Chief?
I know.
You good? Very good. And you are in the process now of interviewing for lieutenant, correct?
Yes, so we completed the interviews today. Two of the individuals who we had scheduled to come, they didn't make the interview. The one person who I was aiming to interview did an outstanding job in the interview. The other person actually got the lowest rating you can get during the interview. So I'm gonna move with my choice, and you guys will be able to meet the interviewee in the January meeting. Most of you probably has already seen him around a lot.
Did you have a panel?
I wasn't on the panel.
Oh, yeah, you did have a panel. Okay. You said you were not. Fantastic. I wasn't on your panel either. Okay, great. Thank you, Chief. I will now move to our Public Works building, the garage and the remodeling of it at 20,000. And Mr. Barnes, he has that information, but I do know from talking with him, it'll be sheetrock, ceiling, will level the floor, heating and cooling will be added, and new lighting. And I probably missed a few things. Mr. Barnes? The remodeling of the garage for Public Works. What used to be their office.
So this is really two reasons behind this. One, the church came to the mayor some many months back now and indicated that they really needed more space, that they wanted to build a building or wanted us to build them a building on site. And I believe we determined that that just wasn't feasible, but maybe looking at how we could do better with Public Works. And well, then in the meantime, as you all know, we had a visit from Moshe, and so they reviewed the Public Works building. That was one of the things they took a look at, as one of the Public Works staff was concerned about varmint and vermin and mice and stuff. And so this will take care of that, is it will close up the building tightly. Which is probably proper and needed from a safety standpoint for the food distribution. As they store food in there, they bring in food typically during the week and store it and then distribute it. So they'll tear out the office, they'll put in new ceiling, new lighting, a sheetrock. They'll paint pour the floor or level the floor and then paint it. And so whether they're in there or whether they eventually move out, it's going to be great space for us in the future. So I believe it's a good plan to solve safety issue concerns and to keep the food operation going. It doesn't get any smaller. The lines continue to grow and the walk-ups continue to grow. If you've been here on Saturday, you see, I think that typically the church is running out of food pretty much every Saturday. So answer any questions. Mayor, you're muted, but I heard what you said because I'm next door. So no, the space will go that. We will go move Public Works to a new building that I'm going to bring to you down next to our other new building, and they'll keep all of their equipment. They'll have a paint safe for any paint or chemicals locked up. All of those things from the safety standpoint that's needed to be safe from that standpoint.
So we're upgrading a space that needed definite upgrading and allowing the church to utilize this space so that they can stop using the town hall to store their food and things like that comes early. And then in the meantime or in between time, we'll have another space for our public works. Once the church transitions with that program, if they do, we'll be able to have that space, which we definitely need.
And this is yes, that's correct, Mayor. And this is also a budget issue. As I think all of you know, one of our public works employees, Steve, got promoted to community compliance officer, doing just an outstanding job in that role. And I don't intend to replace him per se, as we used for fall here as an example, we used the landscapers to pick up leaves. They did a great job. I haven't had any complaints. They're still continuing to do that as we finish up the piles. They've dedicated a person to assist with snow removal. They already do all of our mowing and rain garden maintenance. So essentially this saves the dollars of a public works employee. And I do want to answer to Sarah what she said earlier. The savings in the police department, the way that the structure is being done is to the budget is about $75,000. So by eliminating the captain's position and changing, we used to have a corporal and a sergeant, and the corporal position went away, and so now we have the sergeant and the lieutenant. So that ended up saving some dollars too.
Thanks, Rod. That's helpful. Mayor, I have a question about, I mean, it's good to hear that this is something that the town could use. Do we have any sense of like how long the church is intending to do this service out of town hall?
No, actually, we didn't know it was going to be this long, but I think the relationship and the accessibility to for individuals, because the majority of the individuals that utilize this food program are not from Edmonston necessarily. Edmonston residents do participate, but from the pandemic, it seems like the lines have grown. And I also know that I think it's now it was once a month, and I think it's once a week now in Riverdale. Is that accurate? In the park?
I believe that's correct. Every time you go through on Fridays.
Yeah, so there seems to be more of a need for this food supplement, as well as our pantry does not keep food in it. So I do not know how long they'll be able to continue. So that's we don't want them to feel uncomfortable, and I know that's not why you're asking that question.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I know
Let
that's
me-
not
Let me,
why.
let me just be clear. Like, I
Yeah.
do know though that like the cars now line up like on Decatur and then onto Kenilworth as well.
Mhm.
And they start really early, right? Like they line up well before the distribution begins. And so I guess I was wondering if there was any other space in town that might be sort of a little bit more conducive to handling that amount of traffic, was all I was thinking,
Yeah,
frankly.
yeah. It could be, but I think that through the few years, people have gotten used to it. They do have security that's here, and they do run through that line rather quickly once it gets going. I mean, their whole process has changed to they are working machines. But I get what you're saying, possibly another location. But you know, we're tight everywhere. So if we were to do it somewhere where the
Yeah.
warehouses are, it would end up being a problem still. So I think them with having the security going into a ticket, because they give everybody a ticket or a coupon that are in the line. And once it starts, they just whiz through. We even have more, Sarah, we have more walk-ups as well. And sometimes if I drive down through the park towards Town Hall, I see people leaving that have left Town Hall with their shopping carts, carrying it on their shoulders. So yeah, I think this is the location. I think our relationship is one where they communicate with us, we communicate with them. They're also in Bladensburg. They go to Port Towns Elementary. So
Okay.
they with Bladensburg as well. So they're just doing a lot in the community, and I'm glad we're able to offer them some space and for what they're doing. And it really did help us too, especially during the pandemic, to serve our residents. Because initially we were just kind of dipping and diving, like trying to get on. I know Jolene had a distribution, and then sometimes Calvin Hawkins would have one. And then we would sometimes get food from Cottage City or Comer Manor. And this made it consistent for our residents. Granted, a lot of people use it, but it made it consistent for our residents. So it helped us out too. A good question, another good question. You're on a roll. So it does.
You know, you could reverse direction.
Oh, have them come through Riverdale and take up more space in the park.
Yeah, because the line be better instead of going up down Decatur and Kenilworth.
Yeah, that's a good thought, Mr. Johnson. We just have to retrain them on which way to come, but yeah, that's a good thought. Train to come this way so we could retrain them the other way. Yeah, that's worth a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea because once I mean, we're supposed to have that sidewalk construction on 52nd soon, right? Like,
Sometimes.
Yes, it'll happen in the spring, probably February.
yeah. So
it might be
this might
good
be
to
something
start.
they need to do anyway, because all that, you know, like some of that equipment is out there for a little bit, even if they're not working on the weekend.
Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, I will chat with them. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Ms. Turberville. So the next one is to install temporary closure of Lafayette Place at Ingraham and also send out notification. Mr. Barnes, you want to talk about that?
Well, this is the project that came from the traffic study and was suggested that we turn Lafayette into a dead end at Ingraham, making everything come in and out of the business parks through 46th Avenue. I think we were going to try to do some meetings that didn't seem to get off the schedule. So I continue to get calls from one particular resident, about when are we going to take some action. So I thought maybe tonight at least we could discuss it and see if you all were receptive to the idea. I've talked verbally to a number of the businesses and kind of informed them of what the recommendation was from Panoni, but I haven't sent out any official notice yet, and I wanted to get a one more read from you folks and whether you thought it was a good idea to do. We would set up those plastic orange barricades you see that are temporary until we saw whether it worked or didn't work. And as a option along with this, one of the concerns was, if you recall in the discussion with the traffic engineers, was that people would start cutting from 46 down Hamilton and down Gallatin, and that we may have to block off those streets also at 46 so that you can't go in or out into those streets from 46th Avenue. So
Everybody remembers where Ingraham is, right?
and actually, I see, Mayor, we have a resident from over there. Rose Jaffe is on. I don't know if she had a reason that she was attending tonight. Hi, Rose.
Hey, I am just curious, as I'm a new resident here, and so I just wanted to log on and listen in.
Well, and I'm glad you're on, because I was going to tell you, I had talked to you before about some rain gardens in the front there along your street, and the landscapers will be doing that in the next few weeks. You're going to get at least two. They won't hurt the trees, the small trees you have planted there. They'll make sure they stay. But
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, I knew you would be excited, and I knocked on your door the other day, but you weren't home. So I was excited when I saw your name tonight. So it's really great to have you on. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, but closing Lafayette at Ingraham, your thoughts?
Yes, so let's see, Ingraham is the one before Hamilton, or
Mm.
wait, which one?
Yes, it's
According to what
behind you.
direction you're
Dr.
traveling.
Dallas, and then Ingraham.
Where are you, Ms. Jackson?
Oh, yeah, I'm next to Dr. Dallas on
Yeah,
the
I thought
corner
on the corner.
of
Yeah.
Lafayette. Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic. It doesn't, the traffic doesn't bother me as much, but I come from like the city where there's just tons of traffic all the time. So it's less for me out here, but I mean, that would be wonderful. I'm absolutely for that. If it
Also
doesn't
for the
impact the businesses negatively too much.
good. Also for the council's benefit, Rose is an artist. She did the mural over at Eco City Farms, and so
Oh, the
we're
new
in
one. Oh, good.
yes, and so
Right,
we're
I
in
did hear
conversation
that.
with her to do a Hispanic mural, and I'm going to be applying for a grant hopefully in a couple weeks, and get her started on that next year for unveiling sometime late in the year. But
So
yes,
the murals were really spotlighted during the sector plan. I said, wow, they keep putting that mural up. So that was really good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rose, the four towns, Calmer Manor, Cottage City, Bladensburg, and Edmonston, we have a sector plan, which is basically a planning and zoning strategic plan together, and it last done in 2009. It is now currently just launched to be updated, and certainly you can be involved in it. There's lots of opportunity. And one of the things that they took a look at, like the mayor said, was suggesting that the wonderful murals that we have and adding murals in is a great way to attract businesses and development and residents.
I love it. In fact, can I quickly add one thing about the murals here? Am I allowed to do that?
Go ahead, you're fine.
So the business that is on the corner when you're turning left onto Decatur off of really terrible, like right before the train tracks. Yeah, before the train tracks and right before you go on the bridge, that road. That building is just a little bit of an eyesore, I would say, and they have a big white wall there. And I was just gonna reach out to those folks and see if they would be open. I was just gonna knock on their door. Yeah, I mean, it's like a huge, big sidewalk. There's often trucks there. And I mean, I just take that turn every single day. And I feel like they have this, they just repainted it all white. And so I was gonna reach out to them about possibly seeing if they would want to add some color, or some mural there, but I didn't know if you knew whose business that was.
Oh, can they do that with the facade grant?
Well, they're not in Edmonston, but
Oh, they're
Oh,
not.
she's
I was
talking,
wondering about
oh,
that.
she's talking across the street, the electric company? Or,
no, I think she's
Oh.
talking about right at Alt 1, turning left at the light. Is that right, Rose?
Yes,
And it's
oh,
the
after the train track.
it's the
after the train tracks, it's not
construction.
yeah.
Edmonston anymore.
Yeah.
Oops, okay, never
They
mind.
It's,
just painted that.
They did,
Yes.
they did.
That's a construction company. They actually used to be located in Edmonston and on 46th Avenue and moved up to there when that building used to be really bad, Rose, a lot worse than it is. It's been a lot of things over the years. It was a convenience store. It was a
Okay,
tobacco shop. I don't know. It's been a lot, repair shop, whatever. But that is a construction company, and all those trucks, if you
That's
notice in the
high.
morning, there's a whole lot of them, and then they roll out for their jobs. But yeah,
But you know what? That's not a bad idea because no matter what, everyone thinks that it's Edmonston. So if you make that look beautiful, that's good for us.
yeah, I mean, even if
absolutely.
it said Edmonston, I mean, it feels like it's kind of like, that's like where you come down, you turn into Decatur and you kind of enter Edmonston. So I feel like even if it's not Edmonston, it feels like kind of the entrance to
Mhm.
at least this part of Edmonston. So I don't
Yeah.
know, just food for thought.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. That sounds great. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Okie dokie. So,
I have a quick
um,
question.
everyone is good. You had something, Ms. Rono?
Question.
Uh,
Just a quick question about the mural. How much does that like regularly cost?
Yeah, it depends. I price usually per square foot, and it depends on if it's indoor, outdoor, what the surface is, a little bit about the design, lead time, all those types of things. And price per square foot is anywhere between 15 to like $50 a square foot. It's quite a range depending on all those elements.
Coney, to give you some idea, we're hoping in the $15,000 to $20,000 range.
Got it. Thank you.
good question. Next, so everybody is good with the temporary closure, I'm sure, of Lafayette. Yeah, we are, right? No questions on that. All right, so I want to go. Ms. Tuberville, you had your hand up again, or
I had one.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I did have a hand up again. Not about this. I'm all good with
Okay.
the closure.
Okay.
I wondered if there might be an opportunity to just raise something that more than one resident has talked to me about in the last month. Before we move to the police SOPs.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know how to say this delicately, but we appear to have a major problem with dog poop on our new sidewalks, in people's yards that people are not picking up. And I just wondered if we might do some kind of a little bit more of an awareness campaign or something like that about people's obligation to scoop your
Scoop the
poop. I
poop.
mean, it's just gross, right? Like you're walking with your family, you're walking your dog, and you like on our new sidewalks. It's really unfortunate. And then people have also said that like they've had this problem in their yards and people not picking up after their pets.
Mhm.
So you know,
Yeah.
when it's more than one person, it just kind of makes you scratch your head.
Mhm.
That Councilmember Tuberville, that if you as you recall, few years back now, that's what precipitated the poop stations that are all around town. 10 of them was trying to promote that, and for a number of years, we did the scoop the poop, and we can resurrect that back up. It's still a marketing a program that the county uses, Department of Environment,
Mhm.
University of Maryland School of Finance. So we can certainly ramp it up from a marketing standpoint and try to get some awareness about it. I know it's an issue. I get calls from a person over on Gallatin that has a heart attack every time it happens there, and I was out delivering bags this week, and I almost the homeowner said, "Don't step here." That somebody was rude and didn't do what they should have done and clean up after their dog, and so it is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing is wrong with reminders, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what short of that we can really do, but that'd be great to resurrect that. That was a cute little marketing campaign they did. So if we can use some of those materials or whatever, that'd be awesome.
Chief, can you give
Mr.
tickets?
Rama?
If a person identifies the owner of the dog and sees it, can they somehow, is there a ticket process?
I mean, it's a violation of the town ordinance, which is just a small civil citation that we'll issue. Mainly the code enforcement also issue. They can just mail it out to them and have them rectified it by paying. It'll come to court.
Mr.
I
Rama,
mean-
you had your mic up, you had a
Oh,
comment.
yeah, that was actually my question. If there was any, if we had any town laws or county laws where we could issue citations or tickets for that.
Do you know if there's anything county, as far as, law for that, Chief?
I don't know if it's a county ordinance or county law, but I do know it's in our ordinance and we can use that for our leverage.
Okay.
I mean, I would probably guess and say it's probably a county ordinance as well.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
I mean, maybe there's a way for us to have like a carrot and stick approach that's like, hey, reminding you to do this thing. And
Yeah,
then
I know we got door hangers that
parentheses.
we gave out last time.
You know, something that was brought up, and it's a kind of a clever little idea when Councilmember Tuberville said it about how to scoop the poop was kind of a cute marketing thing. They're over in some of the houses' yards, they have these cute little doggy stick things that are in the yard that says pick up after your dog or something. It has some little tricky thing on it, but people put them in, it's only about what, 8 inches tall and goes in the grass.
No
And
bandit signs.
yeah. And maybe that's something we could do, and Steve could hand them out, as it becomes or we become aware of it, or somebody complain, because Chief, the person on Gallatin that calls.
Okay, well, thank you. Good conversation. We'll take care of that. I want to go to the general orders, the high liability policies, and I'll let our chief go ahead and start that conversation.
Thank you.
And Ms. Tuberville comes on camera for this discussion. That's how serious she is.
I just got in the house. Sorry. Yeah.
So first I want to
Coincidence, Chief. Coincidence.
take the time to thank Ms. Sarah for meeting up with me and giving me some ideas to go back and take to Lexipool. So I stayed on the Zoom call with Lexipool for almost an hour and a half, trying to make sure everything was that we were able to change that we can change. So for as far as the officer involved shooting or serious death, I know the issue was officers reviewing their body cameras prior to an incident. With the new Maryland law is we don't, like the town of Edmonston, we don't investigate our own Department of Shootings anymore. It is now being handled by the Maryland Independent Investigation Division, which is part of the Office of Attorney General in Baltimore. So just to give you an idea of what happens, if Officer Joe Schmo is involved in any type of also involved shooting, a pursuit that has a citizen or the suspect in serious injury where they might it might turn fatal or it is fatal. Anytime an officer discharges their firearm not inside of a training facility, I have to then notify MSP, which is the Maryland State Police, and they in turn will send out an investigator from the Attorney General office. Once the Attorney General Office's Independent Investigation Division is notified, they respond out, they take all the evidence. We submit to them, we submit everything to them, body cam video, everything. And what happens is that officer doesn't get to see the video because it now becomes locked and it goes to the IID. Now, the officer, when it's time to give a statement, he won't give it to us because that's part of the new reform law is we can't investigate our own anymore. It goes to the Independent Investigation Division. The Independent Investigation Division, they will contact that officer and tell him, hey, on this date and time, respond to Greenville or respond to this location to give us your statement. Once that officer gives a statement, he still doesn't see the body cam video. It's up to the IID on when they will allow him to see that video prior to giving a statement or after he gives a statement. The IID, they handle everything. Once they get the video from us or whatever evidence, they then have 30 days to make it public. But they would give us a 24-hour heads up. They would say, hey, Edmonston, we're going to release the body cam footage this Monday. So that way we can prepare ourselves to either give a press conference on our end or whether we're going to let them just give out the entire press conference. Any questions in reference to that on how they handle it?
But when does the officer see the video?
It's up to the officer and the attorney. Sometimes the attorney may tell the officer, don't say anything prior, and the practice of it, from when I've seen on Department of Shootings, the officer involved, they don't make that statement right then and there. It's smart for them not to make the statement because they have the opportunity to obtain counsel, and the counsel will advise them on when and where to make that statement if they need to make a statement. If the counsel would like that officer to review that body cam footage, they will make that request to the IID because we won't have access to it.
Okay, Ms. Turberville, thank you.
No, this is super helpful clarification. So it's sort of like, it's almost like a superfluous policy for us then, because it's not really like something that Edmonston Police would be involved in. But it's my view, and I understand I may not be able to persuade everybody to come over to this, but that there still is the possibility that an officer could view the footage before everything is handed over to the Independent Investigative Authority for the state of Maryland.
No. So once that officer is involved, we immediately tell them to dock their body camera so that it can upload, and then I can restrict it on our end. So even if they go to log into their Exxon evidence account, that video will say it's restricted. They won't be able to review it. And then we submit everything to the IID for investigative purposes.
And so if I were the attorney for the police officer in that instance, I would look at this policy and I would say, look, this says the officer gets an opportunity to view this footage before giving an initial statement. That's the Edmonston Police Department policy. So I would like to be able to, so I want my client to be able to see this, right?
And
So that's why I'm suggesting that maybe like to cover us and to cover the police department so that you're never in the position of having to deal with that, is that it should just say that the policy should reflect the way that the process works, which is that like this, after an officer involved shooting, the body worn camera footage is submitted to the state of Maryland entity that we were just describing, Chief. And that the determination about whether or not an officer can view that footage prior to giving an initial statement is made by that body, rather than us having anything in it about Edmonston Police Department.
And I definitely understand that part. I went and looked at Prince George's County's aspect on their policy on the review of body cam footage. So with their policy, it kind of contradicts itself, because at one point it says that they allow the officers to review the footage prior to giving a report or being investigated for any criminal or administrative investigations. But then after that, it says, at the direction of the Internal Affairs Division, that the officer can review the footage after the criminal aspect and before the administrative aspect. So it was kind of like I try to see if I can meet halfway and try to say, okay, let's secure the evidence or the video and still let the officer review it, or do I just secure the whole video? And the way I look at it as, if the attorney wants to request it, we won't have it to send out. They will have to make that request with the ID. Because I know for our policy, it says that, you know, they will be able to review it. But they would then make that request to the ID. Because we will secure it, or it's still gonna be redacted to a certain extent. So we can still submit it to the officer once they make their request to ID.
I understand that piece. I guess I just disagree with the idea that we should be permissive in our policy. Like, I think our policy should just state that, like, it is not the policy of the Edmonston Police Department to permit a officer to view footage prior to giving. You know, I think there would be a way for us to word it so that it just completely reflects that this is a decision of the Independent Investigations Division.
And when I spoke to, so I asked a couple of other chiefs, and their main thing was they didn't see an issue with having an officer review it. And I've only been the chief for a year, so I'm trying to learn the best practice from all over. And the reason for it is the evidence doesn't change. We don't prosecute based off of what the officer's statements say. We prosecute based off the evidence that's provided to us during an investigation. So even if the officer wants to lie about something after reviewing the video, we just open up another charge for false statement. Or we say that, you know, yeah, he reviewed the video. His statement that he gave us doesn't match with the statement. His statement after reviewing the video isn't going to change the fact that he ended up shooting somebody or ended up crashing his car and killing somebody. The statement based off of them, when we do an investigation, that's just what they say. Even when we do a criminal investigation on a regular citizen, that statement doesn't really help us in court. It's more so what the evidence can tell us.
But I mean, I can't help but push back a little bit on this, because all officer involved shootings have to do with whether or not the officer's conduct was reasonable under the circumstances. And so if an officer is permitted to review the footage before giving an initial statement, it opens up the opportunity for them to be able to devise a justification or statement when they make their initial statement that would seemingly be reasonable. Whereas, like, if you base it upon what if the officer gives an initial statement and then is given the opportunity to review the footage and then could say, oh, well, I thought it was, like, I thought he was pulling out, a gun, and it turned out to be a wallet or whatever. But, like, and to me, it's just sort of common sense too, right? Like, if you are a detective in a police department, like, you are never going to allow somebody, like a defendant, to be able to review footage that you have of them committing the offense in question before getting a statement from them. And so to me, it's like the same thing. And so people, now look, other council members may feel differently about that. And I just want to put this perspective out there that, like, we have the opportunity to do something to say, like, look, we're not just going to hand over this footage to a police officer who is involved in a shooting. It may be ultimately that they do get the footage before making a statement to the Independent Investigative Division, but that's not our call. And we're not going to be put ourselves in the position of handing this footage over to them so that then they can sort of potentially devise a story that now fits with what the footage revealed.
And so, based on with the new Maryland law for use of force, I understand I know when you said reasonable, so we don't go by the reasonable and articulable suspicion anymore. The state of Maryland, we moved away from the use of force. So now an officer can use the reasonableness and the articulable facts when you give their statement. The state of Maryland looks at it as the necessary proportionate force. Now, when we ask everybody from the attorneys and stuff like that, they don't even know what the necessary proportionate force is. So what I don't want to do is have an officer's hands tied. And right now the county is waiting for an officer to mess up and make him a scapegoat, because the county doesn't know, the state of Maryland doesn't know, And so when us chiefs, we ask them, well, what do you consider to be necessary and proportionate force? They don't know. Whereas back in the day, we can say reasonable and articulable force. So whenever you look at a departmental shooting or officer involved death, it was always what would another reasonable and articulable officer would do in that same situation. And the officer would take that and say, well, this officer would have did the same exact thing. So now with the new Maryland law of the necessary proportionate force, what I don't want to do is be the scapegoat to say I'm tying the officer's hands down. And my officers are primarily young; they have less than 5 years in policing. So when we start to tighten up on the laws and the general orders, I'm not giving them leeway, but at the same time, I don't want them to go out there walking on eggshells and get themselves killed because they're nervous about what the use of force is going to say, and the state don't even know what they want the use of force to say.
But that's
so I'm not-
separate. That's like the use of force standard. And our use of force standard, by the way, doesn't say necessary and proportionate. It uses the old standard. So that's maybe something we need to change as well. But like, but this isn't about, yeah, necessary and proportionate. Yeah. But this isn't about that. Like, regardless of what the standard is that a police officer's actions would be judged by, to me, I don't think it's appropriate for an officer to be able to view the footage before giving an initial statement, regardless of what the standard is, because that to me that is not what you would do in any other setting where you are investigating the legality of somebody's conduct, right? Like, so I just, and there's probably not much more for me to say, and so maybe we just need to move on to figure out like what a potential solution is, but I just wanted to convey that I don't think it matters whether or not it's necessary and proportionate, or whether it is, reasonable under the circumstances of a police officer in that particular situation, whatever the prior standard was. Whatever the use of force standard is, I don't think an officer should be able to view the footage before giving an initial statement. And I would like for our policy to reflect that, particularly if it's the independent investigations division that's ultimately going to make that determination anyway.
Cool. Thank you, Ms. Turbeville. Did any other council member, Mr. Johnson or Ms. Serrano, did you have a comment to that or question? Would you like to question our attorney, Ms. Turbeville, or our chief? Did it bring any confusion? What I'd like to know is how much can we, so Ms. Turbeville, I am basically in agreement with you on this. Or should I say I understand what you're saying on this, and I do understand what our chief is saying as well. So I'd like to know how much can we manipulate this to reflect Edmonston after Lexipol has provided us their recommendation? Are we changing? If we would take some of what Ms. Turbeville said, I don't know.
So we can word it in Lexipol based off what you guys approved tonight, and that was the reason why we held off, because I had to meet with Ms. Sarah. I made contact with other police chiefs to see what was the best practice and what their agency does. The representative from Lexipol is actually a retired police chief for 36 years in Florida. So it's kind of different because she's from Florida, so she doesn't understand like some of the things that we do here in Maryland. So even when I reached out to some local Maryland agencies and reviewed PG County's policy, I think if I reach out to Judge Deloach and see what he recommends to be the best outcome, that'll work too. Because it's up and down. You don't want to tie officer hands down by not allowing them to view the body camera. But at the same time, I understand what Ms. Sarah's saying and saying, hey, we don't need the officer to see it.
Yeah. And some of what Ms. Tuberville was saying, she put it in words that I couldn't find. As far as an officer seeing the footage beforehand, how that would cause me to say, I thought it was a candle. And that's why I get to write my story differently, because I see what it actually said. I can't remember because everything happened so quickly. But then when I see that video, oh yeah, I'm going to say so-and-so. And not to say that officers are dishonest, or, the majority of officers are dishonest, or they're lying, they're not telling the truth. But I can definitely see what she's saying. And I think, I know that's one reason I would go with changing it a little bit. But I don't want to change it if it is the way we do it in the county, if the majority of your, I'm really in the middle, honestly.
And that's how I was hearing it from Lexipol, and that's why I said having Sarah on board gives me that up to go out and do my
Another
research a little bit 10 times harder, because I didn't just take the policy and say, okay, we're gonna run with it. It gave me the avenue to take back some homework to Lexipol and say, well, what do you guys think about this? And then when I talk to other chiefs, and then I look at PG County's body cam policy, and it's like, well, theirs is just contradicting itself, because it's saying that they can and they can't. You're saying that the officer can review it prior to a criminal and administrative hearing, but then they can't review it, or they can only review it after the closing of a criminal case, but before an administrative case. And it's tricky because even, for instance, the officer involved shooting that they had with the guy in handcuffs in the police car, that wasn't captured on body camera. So it's his word against theirs. If he would have been able to see the video, he could have easily said something completely different. But he didn't give a statement at all. He never gave a statement that week. He didn't give a statement that night, that month. So again, it's tricky because each situation is different.
Yeah.
Steve, I have a quick question.
Mhm.
Are municipal officers also part of the Fraternal Order of Police?
So it depends. It's up to that. Also, when I was with Prince George's County, I was a part of the Fraternal Order of Police 89. They took out $35 every paycheck or every month to go towards legal fees. And I noticed in the municipal world, officers got to take it amongst themselves to pay for the attorney fees, which is average, I think, $170 a year. And if they don't pay for that, then they're not covered. And that's another thing. A lot of officers, they don't have the coverage from an FOP attorney. So a lot of times they may put themselves in a situation where they don't know anything, how the process goes. They might do a spontaneous utterance to give out a statement. And then when they go to obtain a legal representation, that retaining fee up front is pretty hefty.
And are Edmonston officers part of it?
Certain ones have filled out the application. They just haven't made their first year payment yet to be covered. We encourage them to get covered because the FOP will also cover you if you work in secondary employment at a Walmart, at IHOP or something like that. The FOP attorney will cover you.
Got it. Thank
Chief Mayor, I have a potential compromise that I think might help us here. So the current policy says any officer involved in a shooting or death may be permitted to review available videos or recordings prior to providing a recorded statement or completing reports. What if we just added a comma that says, in the discretion of Maryland's Independent Investigative Division? So it makes clear that decision belongs to them and not to us.
Yeah, I like that because they're the ones handling the investigation. And what we don't want to do is prematurely give out a video, or not even give out let the officer review the video. And upon their statement with the Independent Investigation Division, they say, well, hey, you guys could have reviewed the video. So I think by punting their buck to IID and letting them make a decision gives us that wiggle room out.
Say that one more time for me. Maybe permitted, and then.
So it's everything that's in the current policy. It's 304.9, but it would just be a comma after the end of the current sentence that says, in the discretion of what's it called, Chief? The Maryland?
The Maryland Attorney General's office, or Office of Attorney General's Independent Investigation Division, but you could put IID.
Which would mean that automatically you would upload it, send it to them, and then let them make the decision about the statement or whether the officer should view it.
Yeah.
Because I know they investigated another agency here, Morningside Police, and I think I was telling Ms. Sarah about it. The police department wasn't behind that vehicle at all. It just the guy was traveling at a high rate of speed. The police vehicle went to catch up to try to get a tag to see if there was a vehicle. That there was a vehicle that was actually shooting at people on Allentown Road. But the officer did the smartest thing by activating his his body camera, because Morningside didn't have in-car cameras. So once he activated his body camera, at that moment, that's when the suspect vehicle lost control and went head on with another vehicle. So the IID, they came down, they got all the evidence right there on scene that day, and they went back and had the officer come up that following week to do a statement in Greenbelt.
That following week. So he never saw the body cam.
And now I know I was looking at a new law update. I don't know if it passed yet, but they're trying to give them prosecutorial powers, which means they'll be able to prosecute officers instead of sending it to that local agency, state's attorney's office.
I think that that's good. I like that comma. Then what comes after?
Now I'll have her change that.
And then, Chief, the only other thing I just think we need to, I don't know if we need to sort this out tonight, but the use of force policy does not reflect the new Maryland state law. It
And
does
that's what I had her change, and that's what I was looking at when before I sent it out. It was supposed to say the national what is it?
necessary and proportionate, yeah. It's all about reasonably necessary given the facts for a legitimate law enforcement purpose. So it's the old standard.
And I'll have her change. That's the one I had her update, but I don't know if the system took it or not.
So Ms. Serrano, how are you? Are you in agreement with the comma and the in the discretion of
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mr. Johnson, I see that you are muted. If I just wanted your feedback, if you could unmute. I don't know if you taking care of something. Okay, I just want to make sure we're. I mean, we may not all agree, but kind of on the same page with this, because it will affect, of course, how we. And one of the things that I have a concern, of course, personally. Well, not personally, like I've had an incident, but personally, I was concerned. The other thing is, Sarah always brings it to my attention that we might trust you, or we know you won't behave a certain way, but I won't always be in the position, and Chief Bill won't always be in the position. So we have to do things for now and going forward until, you know, they decide to make whatever changes. But you always have to think about that. I feel Chief probably would just go ahead, upload it, and leave it to them anyway. But some things need to be stated where that may, right there, someone will pull that may, and that means, well, I may or may not. So here you go, sir. So thank you for bringing that out, and thanks, Chief. So that was the toughest conversation that we had on the agenda tonight, and it was pretty smooth to me. Unfortunately, Ms. McCulley wasn't here. But that's
It
okay.
will be for council meeting.
Yeah. And she can make her statement then, but I don't think that she would be in total disagreement. I don't know. I won't speak for anybody. So is there anything else that the council might want to cover, or staff that you might want to cover?
What do you want to
Just
do
a-
about the use of force policy, though? Chief, just if it doesn't reflect the new Maryland state law, I sort of feel like we probably shouldn't approve that one if it doesn't have the new standard in there.
Oh, so what I would do is I'll send her email. I haven't sent that out to the officers yet. None of these have been sent out to the officers. And the good thing about Lexipool is once I send her email, she can actually update it. So even if you guys were to approve it today, I'll just rechange the word in the way you guys need it to be changed and it'll be in the system. And if you don't, I just let her know that she needs to change it and we'll put it back on the agenda for next meeting.
I'd rather, I mean, my personal preference would be to hold off until January until we have the proper language in here from Lexipol. And because there's multiple paragraphs in here that are based upon the old standard, so.
Is this for the entire use of force one or just for that one paragraph?
300. See, it's tough because it's like it contradicts itself. It's like 300.3 has the old use of force standard, and then 300.3.2 has the Maryland use of force statute. And then there's factors used to determine reasonable use of force. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's like they just sort of plopped in the new Maryland statute, and then they've got all the other sort of criteria that existed under the old law. So I
And I think that was what we talked about the federal statute ones. Because when I told her to remove it, I think the way Lexipool was worded, certain federal statutes can't be removed. And let me clarify that tomorrow when I speak to her. Because I know that was one of the things that she brought up when I want her to remove that. Was that federal statute thing. So we can hold off and put this one on the back burner until January.
Yeah, does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
That way I can get clarification on the federal ones. Because I see, if you notice on the bottom of some of them have best practice and some of them have federal, and those are the ones that she said something about last time. But I was more so keen on the ones you want to change that first.
Yeah, and I think the federal is based upon like court interpretations of, like, there's no federal use of force statute, like it's just based on sort of courts' interpretation of different, I don't need to get into all the nitty-gritty of it, but like it is absolutely changeable because we have a Maryland state statute that is now different. And so the federal court interpretations are completely irrelevant for us now.
Okay.
Not completely, but mostly irrelevant. It's so wild when my day job and my council job merge into one. Okay, but otherwise, Chief, like I'm good with everything else, and am really grateful for all the time that you've spent and
No problem, no
sorting
problem.
some of this out, and I don't know,
I'm just trying to get as many as we can get approved, and make sure that you guys are agreeing to them before we get them approved.
thank you.
All right, cool. Okay. So if that's all we have, we can break until 7. All righty, does everybody do that?
All right with me.
Thanks.
All right. See you soon.